haven't heard of Italy's Labyrinth, you are missing out. They were power metal before power metal was even really all that cool. Starting in the mid-90s, with Fabio Leone briefly as their vocalist for the first album, and then turning in an all-time power metal classic with the monumental sophomore effort Return to Heaven Denied, followed up by a few almost equally good releases, after which the band kind of lost its footing when the classic core lineup and songwriting team fell apart with the departure of guitarist Olaf Thorsen. Thus followed a few decidedly strange records, some deep dives into some very weird electronic, progressive music. I'm not even sure I want to use the term metal. I'm going to admit a sneaking admiration for some of it. But let's just say the fans didn't like it. So in 2009, when the aforementioned Olaf Thorsen returned to the fold, it was a major event. This reunited the classic core lineup and songwriting team of vocalist Roberto Torrente and guitarist Anders Rehn, and resulted in the 2010 stunner Return to Heaven Denied 2, which was followed up a very long 7 years later with the equally outstanding Architecture of a God, and this year we have Welcome to the Absurd Circus to prove to us that it wasn't a fluke. Now, we've had a few other changes along the way. Smirnoff on keys and Nick Mazzucconi on bass came along just in time for Architecture of a God. And new for this album is Matt Peruzzi on drums. Well, let's take a look at this thing.
Okay, where's the vinyl? Seriously, where? Because this thing, I can barely see.
Yeah, the jacket art is really itty bitty on a CD jewel case. That's terrible. And it's pretty cool jacket art, too. When we put it on the TV downstairs using Tidal, we get a big, almost vinyl-sized picture up there while it's playing, and we can see it, but this, come on, guys. Okay, the jacket art's only one reason, but for the love of God, give us a vinyl copy. Moving on.
True to the name, we've got a circus here.
Welcome to the Absurd Circus. Did I mention the title earlier? I'm not sure I did. It's Welcome to the Absurd Circus.
Mm-hmm. We've got lots of magic here, and the circus looks very absurd. It's up in flames. That's a really weird mask. Have you looked at the mask yet?
I've seen the mask.
Oh.
We won't listen to this album, since this spring?
How do you even work these things?
I have a child of the broadband here, streaming, you know? Look, okay, I'll do it, okay? There's the disc itself. I mean, inside of the booklet, pictures of all the guys in the band, lyrics, all the usual stuff. I just never knew that a jewel case would need to come with an operator's manual.
This record sounds very full. You can hear everything. No disappearing bassist syndrome here, which is a problem with metal albums.
Big, warm enveloping. It's like a big, warm, fuzzy blanket. And yeah, as she said, the mix is great. It's a very guitar-oriented mix. I've seen that a lot in power metal these days. The keyboards are more and more backgrounded over the last few years in power metal in general. And there's no exception here. But the keyboards, well in the background, still have their own little space in the mix and still stand out, and you can see that all his contributions. Same thing with the bass guitar, which is a beautiful bass sound, by the way. Nice and fat and full. I love it. The guitars scorch. Roberto Torrente sits nicely at the top of the mix, just where he's supposed to be. Musically speaking, Labyrinth is ostensibly a power metal band. They're certainly a very Euro, but at the same time, there's a limited amount of real power metal on here.
There's definitely an 80s pop metal feel.
All over the place. I'm thinking songs like Den of Snakes. Good Lord, that could practically be a Def Leppard song if you change the lyrical content. And speaking of lyrical content,
this album, like many others this year, focuses on a world in turmoil. That's been everywhere, except UDO. Or Todd Latour's amazing solo album, Rejoice in the Suffering.
monster classic there, by the way, but we're talking about Labyrinth. Yes, definitely. There's a lot of social commentary here. Again, the aforementioned words Minefield and Denim Snakes both pop immediately to mind. Now, when I downplay the power metal aspect, that's not to say there's no power metal. Live the Day is a pretty straight-ahead power metal track.
This album is full of great licks. In fact, I think there's more licks than there are riffs here.
A lot of harmonized things, and once again, with the ever-superb Thorson/Rain guitar team.
Waking up in another place.
These guys play really well together. It's not even so much a matter of what each individual guitarist is playing, as in the way their playing styles complement each other. And that aside, I do love the solos, and especially like the title track. It's got one of the coolest solos on the album. It's actually, as far as I know, the only music video for the album too, which is sad. Performances across the board are fantastic. Contrary to what you hear in your typical Euro metal album, the bass guitar actually contributes something to the music instead of just holding up the bottom end. And I especially want to make mention of Oleg Smirnov on keys, who is a wonderful keyboard player for a band that doesn't really feature keys. His parts are always highly complimentary and always just the right thing in the right place. In a lot of areas, there's this John Lordy sort of Hammond organ vibe to his keyboard playing, which I absolutely love. Favorites? That's actually a toughie on this record. This is just such a solid, consistent collection of songs here. I would probably go with the title track, with honorable mention to Denim Snakes, which I think I've mentioned a couple times. I've also got to call attention to the cover on here of Dancing with Tears in My Eyes, of all things for a metal band to choose, and it really comes off well. Least favorite song? As Long as It Lasts, but it's still pretty cool.
My favorite is Welcome to the Absurd Circus, the
same as
title
mine.
track, which is a classic power metal song. My least favorite is Live Today, which is so stereotypically power metal, it's not even enjoyable.
I have to strongly disagree with that. It's not my favorite track on the record, but I think Live Today is a fast, fun rip and follow-up to the opening number. But you know, we can't all have my exquisitely developed taste, now can we? End analysis? Buy this record. If there's any clinching proof that Labyrinth is definitively back on track, here is the third excellent album in a row. Just for the love of God, guys, for the love of whatever you hold holy, give us a vinyl release.
I don't entirely agree. Well, cool. I find it has limited replay value. I would still get the album. It's a great power metal album if you're just looking for a light, fun sort of thing.
Out of all the reviews we've done, this is probably the one upon which we disagree the most. For the most part, we've been pretty simpatico on what's a cool record, what's a bad record, what's a great record, what's a decent record. And here we actually have a pretty sharp difference of opinion. I'm pretty close to saying this is the best Euro metal album we've had this year. And she's kind of on the opposite side of the fence. So, take it for what it's worth, I suppose, and until we meet again,
Crank it up A little louder.